So today thank you. Today I'm going to talk about the semantics of the so-called semi-modal use of drohen, which can be translated as threatened in English as illustrated in 1a. In this use, what is described is not someone's act of threatening, as in 1b, but something undesirable is going to happen. So this sentence conveys that the weather is going to become worse, and that is undesirable. And as this paraphrase already indicates, this use is a future orientation. That is, the projected eventuality of drohen must be temporarily located after the evaluation time of the interpose with drohen. In 1a, for example, the projected event, that is, the weather is becoming worse, must happen after the time of speech. This is because the evaluation time of the entire sentence is set to the utterance time due to the present tense of drohen. In contrast, when the projected eventuality overlaps the utterance, the use of drohen causes implicity. This is shown by 2, which is intended to convey a guess about some present situation, in this case, and projected residence of equal. So this is implicit. And this basic observation has led many researchers to the assumption that drohen semantics involves a temporal-aspectual component. Among them, Rice 2005 and 2007 go so far as to argue that drohen is a purely temporal-aspectual expression, which is to be distinguished from other models and essential in general. In hot analysis, drohen has an aspectual component which refers to the initial state or preparatory state of the projected event. Polomo 2011, which partly builds on Rice, proposes further that the future component can be derived from this aspectual component. So I will call such a kind of analysis a purely prospective analysis, PBA. So one of the main goals today is to argue against PBAs based on a novel observation, which is the negative side. On the positive side, I argue for modal as well as evidential analysis of drohen. While the data supporting such analysis in the literature is somewhat indirect, I have more explicit data and arguments for the modal and evidential components. Based on them, I propose a formal semantic analysis in the composition setting. So now let us move on to the topic of formulating what we are against, so purely prospective analysis of the semi-modal. The most prominent account among them seems to be that offered by Rice, who calls for analysis purely temporal-aspectual. However, when we look into her formulation, which is shown in 3, it is not very clear whether what she endorses is really a purely temporal-aspectual analysis. We have 2 comments on this. First, it apparently has an evidential flavor. According to Rice, drohen's denotation involves features F1 to Fn, which indicate the initial state of the projected P or phase vicinity. She writes elsewhere that drohen asserts that the reported situation contains clear signs for P to be imminent or to unfold. So taken at its face value, the analysis seems to involve an evidential component for signs and notions closely related to evidence, for example, in the literature of philosophical science. Second, the analysis involves no explicit reference to temporal conditions. It only refers to the phases of the projected eventuality, not its temporal location with respect to the evaluation time. In fact, Polomo, who partly builds on Rice, proposes that drohen's temporal component, namely futurity, can be derived from its aspectuality. According to her, drohen describes the situation which involves free or initial state of the projected event, and this implies the projected event has not been realized yet. From these 2 considerations, I argue that Rice analysis, I regard Rice analysis either as evidential or as purely aspectual. In the former interpretation, I happily side with Rice and with Polomo. Yes, the one semantics does refer to the existence of some signs for the belief. This is what I actually argue for in section 4. And it is the second interpretation that I'm against. I argue that drohen is not a purely aspectual marker, or more precisely, I argue that drohen should not be analyzed as a purely prospective marker. The crucial data is 4. It's a bit complicated, but in this example, the subordinate clause introduced by Okano, though involves an occurrence of drohen, which is negated by the negative frequency alpha mean level. And drohen presents that such a thing happens when an alphabetical result corresponds to a proposition that a packet explodes. My argument is the following. If drohen is a purely prospective expression, it should signal the existence of pre-states for the pre-adjacent eventualities. And thus the negation of drohen clause should imply the non-existence of pre-states for the pre-adjacent eventuality. This in turn should lead to incompatibility with a sentence which entails the realization of that eventuality. However, the felicity of 4 contradicts this prediction. Despite the negative drohen, the first clause does imply the realization with projection. In this case, the explosion of the packet. Hence, drohen is not a purely prospective expression, so I argue. And for this argument to work, we need two assumptions, and both of which I argue to be plausible. The first assumption is that the non-existence of pre-states implies the non-existence of eventualities that hold. And to defend this claim, we need a more precise notion of pre-states. One of the outstanding accounts which offers such a notion is Moose and Steedman in 1988. To analyze the functions of various aspectual temporal operators in natural language, they assume and exploit a triplet structure of events, as shown in 5A. And in their ontology, an event consists of a preparatory process, a combination, and a consequence state. And these three components are associated with each other via what they call a contingent relation between events, which is a broader notion than a causal relation. Although I follow a more recent study by Bola, 2018, in calling their preparatory process pre-states, and regard the three components as distinct eventualities as shown in 5B, one essential point remains the same. So the relation holding between events and the pre-states is that of contingence. And crucially, the contingent relation subsumes the causal relation. And thus, if existence of a pre-state for some event is denied, then the existence of a cause of that event is denied. So as far as events are conceived as having causes, this means that absence of pre-states and thus the absence of causes implies the absence of the event equation. The second assumption is that prospective aspects amounts to existential quantification of a pre-state. And I simply endorse this because it is shared by some recent proposals, serious proposals to the semantics of aspectual operators, such as Bornemeyer 2014 or 2018. These analyses have in common that the pre-adjacent eventuality E and its pre-state S is existentially quantified, as it's shown in 6 and in 7. And when applied to a predicate of eventualities, the operators amount to saying that there exists a pre-adjacent eventuality E and the pre-state S of E, such that S stands in a certain relation to E, and the given time or the topic time is contained in the runtime of this pre-state S. So importantly, in both analyses, the relations have seen a causal one. So if such prospective operators are negated, the existence of such pre-state should be denied. And back to 4, the one is used in a full-perfect construction, a past-perfect construction. So actually, I have to state more explicitly what this condition is predicted. But for time reason, I have to skip this part, mentioning only that the line of argument is essentially the same as well. So this is the entry for the full-perfect construction. I have to skip it. So let me summarize. Given this difficulty with the negation data, I rebut purely prospective analysis of the drohen and argue for alternative analysis, which involves quantification by future times, but does not posit a prospective component, namely quantification of pre-states. So now we turn to the positive part of this talk. First, I argue for modality in the semantics of drohen. This is done by pointing out that drohen in the present tense shows an epistemic modal like behavior as 9 illustrates. In this example, the predicament of drohen is that the dam bursts under the glass, but the second sentence, which says that the dam will hold, implies the negation of this, which causes implicit. And this observation is reminiscent of the implicity of epistemic modals in conjunction with sentences implying the negation of the predicament. For example, sentences of the form might P, but not P, which Mandelkamp 2090 calls Wittgenstein sentences. And these are known to be suggested as illustrated in 10. And one of the important findings in the recent literature is that this kind of implicity about the distinct modals embeds, so which causes difficulties for applying pragmatic accounts of more paradoxical sentences of the form P, but I don't know P. This point is illustrated by the contrast in 11. While the conditional antecedent of the form P and minus P causes implicity, the corresponding more paradoxical antecedent of the form P and I do not know P does not. And this embedding impossibility about the extent modal extends to the other ordering of modal and non-modal conjuncts and to other environments, such as embedding of the attitude as intellectual, in this case, the attitude of support and belief. Crucially, drohen in the present tense also shows the same effect in embedded environments as 13 illustrates. So these are the examples for conditional antecedent 38 and 30B and 30C is an example for attitude and belief. This data suggests that drohen should be treated as involving in an epistemic modal component like light. Now that we regard drohen as a kind of epistemic modal, the question arises as to which modal force it has. And 14 shows that it must be that of possibility. Drohen can be used even when the context makes it explicit that the chance of the predicament holding true is very small. In this case, the predicament event is a collision of an object named Benny with the Earth. Although the probability of such an event is calculated to be 0.037% by NASA, drohen can take the corresponding proposition of its predicament. So, to sum up, all the data in this section point to the conclusion that drohen as an epistemic modal component whose modal force is that of possibility. And now, next evidentiality. Given the data so far, it might seem that drohen is a mere epistemic possibility modal with future orientation. However, a further observation points to an evidential component in drohen. Even if there is a silent agent whose epistemic state is compatible with the predicament being realized in the future, and that alone does not suffice for the speaker to assert the drohen claim. This is illustrated by the infelicity of 15, where it is contextually established that the subject, Max, entertains the possibility that the predicament eventuality, namely rain from the mountain, might happen, but there is no concrete evidence. In this case, the use of drohen is implicit. However, in another context, 16, the same sentence becomes precise. So in this context, this is different from 15 only in that enough evidence for rainfall is established. For example, dark clouds are quickly during over max and so on. So this is explainable if the semantics of drohen requires the existence of some concrete evidence for adjacent. Okay, so only 6 minutes, so let me get this part. And further observation is evidential restriction. So as Rice points out, there's restriction the kind of evidence compatible with the use of drohen. And 70 shows it's compatible with perceptual evidence, but it's not compatible with both evidence. So this selective nature is reminiscent of genuine evidential in language in the world. So therefore, I conclude that drohen has also an evidential component. Now we implement the observation so far in a formal frame. In my analysis, the modal component of drohen is captured as follows. to predict the incompatibility of drohen with the negation of precision. And I adapt Mandelbrot's analysis of epistemic models, which makes use of the notion of local context. It is represented as a parameter of kappa of the variation index, but unlike the original formulation, it is relativized to a time, which is shown as is shown in 18. And to capture the fact that drohen can be this is to capture the fact that drohen can be semantically tensed. And drohen's modality amounts to existential computation over a set of words, which is obtained by applying the assignment function G to the subscript that drohen can take in 19. And a word W and time T representing some salient individual epistemic state at T and W. But to be able to state the truth condition, drohen's defining this condition requires that epistemic states obtained by applying the GK to words in the local context at the beginning time. I'm reading this part. But be subsets of this very local context, and together with the following truth condition, the truth condition of conjunction, negation, and attitude, drohen P but not P is predicted to be a contradiction, whether embedded or unembedded. So this is 21 is the definition of conjunction, negation, and attitude. And now let us see how this works. The conjunction 21A requires that each conjunct be interpreted with respect to a new information state function, capital Q GT0, and defined in 20. And it is almost same as it is almost the same as the original function, with only difference that it maps the designated type of the index, which by default identified with the time of context TC to a set of words, where the other conjunct is true. So for now, let's assume that this designated time T0 is in fact used to evaluate drohen P but not P. Then for the first conjunct to be defined, it must be the case that for any word W prime in the modified non-P local context at PC, the domain of modal quantification GK W prime PC must be a subset of the very non-P local context at PC, and leading to the posty if such a word in the modified local context is the evaluation word. On the other hand, if the evaluation word W prime is not a member of the modified local context, and that means P is false at W prime, because W prime must be in the original local context due to reflexivity of the accessibility relation. Either way, one or the other conjunct is false, hence the falsity of the interconjunction. And essentially the same explanation holds for the embedded cases, with the only difference that the attitude sets information state to the subject principally and the time parameter to his or her subjective number. Natural question here would be, why is the temporary sensitive local context defined so complicatedly? And this is to capture a third observation that drohen in the past tense, in contrast to the present tense, is compatible with the negation of its predecessor, as is illustrated by point 2, where the second conjunct implies the negation of the predecessor of drohen in the past tense in the first conjunct. The child did not draw. Crucially, in the past cases, some time other than the designated one index serves as an argument of the modified information set function. As is defined in 20, the result of the result of applying the function to that temporal argument is exactly the same as the result of applying the original function. So, and thus the information of the other conjunct is not utilized under interpreted cases. Therefore, no multi-C arrives. And finally, as for drohen's evidentiality, it is reflected in the meta-language expression. There is some concrete evidence in the truth condition 90B, which is left must be left vague at this moment. The felicity of the negated drohen in 4 can be captured thanks to the conjunctive semantics of the modal and the evidential components. This negation can target only the evidential part the negated one does not entail the negation of the predecessor. So I wanted to see how to complete time is up. So let me conclude. So my conclusion is drohen is a future-oriented epistemic model other than evidential. And a purely prospective analysis drohen implemented in a recent framework is difficult to date with negation. And its epistemic model component can be captured properly by modifying or extending Manen-Cut approach. And actually, I had further a very long appendix for further issues, but I think the time is up. So please ask me questions if you're interested. So thank you for your attention.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Thank you so much. I was wondering, can you say drohen P and drohen not P? Like it threatened to rain and it threatened not to rain?
Yeah, yes. So it depends on speakers. So some of the consultants say it's okay, but some of the consultants is strict about the likelihood of the predecessor actually. So I think there is certain speaker variation among the speakers.
Yeah, I think with threatened, it's weird. That's very strange with the English word threatened. And then I think another thing to test would be like, you know, can it threaten to rain and threaten to snow? So it's not P, not P, but incompatible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, yes.
Okay, and then one other small thought I had is another way to argue that drohen has modal content is to look for iteration of modals. So it's strange to say, you know, it was likely that it threatened to rain. That's very strange. But if threatened had no modal content, that would be fine. But it's also strange to iterate epistemic modals, like it's likely that it might rain. So that might be more evidence. But can drohen be iterated? Can you embed drohen under epistemic modals?
I don't think there are many examples for embedding such a drohen, but other epistemic models, it can be clearly tense, so it can be used in the past. So this is
that's different. Yeah.
But that's a very interesting test. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I have one other question.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. One other thought I had is
It's interesting to think about the range of attitudes you can embed it under in terms of kind of like concord effects. Like with threatens, you can say, you know, I fear that it threatens to rain, but you can't say I hope it threatens to rain. You know?
Yes.
Is that true with drohen as well?
Actually, there are examples where drohen is embedded under be pleased or something like that. Yeah, that's the corpus example. And in that case, interestingly, the evaluator for the manufactivity, which I couldn't handle in this talk, can be shifted so to the attitude folder or the subject reference of that attitude. So there are certainly examples of attitude which in but actually there's not so many examples, so it's very hard to find such examples. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I wonder if there's variation in what attitudes you can put under what about its meaning explains that. But
that's interesting. Thank you.
Okay, we have some more time. We take questions from people attending through Zoom. Okay, there's a question from Yoshimori.
No, I just wanted to say that if there's no question, Shinya could speak about the analysis further.
Yeah, if you have something to add or want to elaborate on. Yeah, if you have, if you have like a follow-up comment on certain parts.
Okay, so what I wanted to see actually the talk was that this can be a free compositionally, the interior meaning can be free compositionally constructed using the framework of Dragon and Platinum. So they are still a hierarchy of functional elements, hence model ordering aspect, inclusion aspect, and DP. And if you assume that drohen is an amalgam of mode ordering aspect, then the composition, proceeds. Very smoothly. This is the entry for the composition thing. So this is what I wanted to talk. Yeah. And
this can be a great clarification question, but if I understood the denotation of drohen correctly, there's no component that indicates the event is something bad.
Mhm.
And as all the examples suggest, there is a possibility of some bad thing happen. Where can we find that component? Is
okay.
that category right?
Thank you. That's a very good question. So this is a point that I can't mention in the talk, but the malactivity of drohen must be analyzed in another dimension other than artificial context. So actually, I need slide 4 points. So, very long appendix. So because malactivity means has like a CS in the sense of form. So it is independent of truth value. So the artificial content is defined even if the malactivity does not improve the situation. And this malactivity meaning the presence is under the presence is under projects from under other artificial operators such as negation or conditional antecedent. And crucially, this malactivity meaning doesn't seem to be able to be cancelled by conditional antecedents, unlike presupposition. So I have a very complicated example. So this is in this example, the antecedent blue flag is a bad sign. It's supposed to be this malactive content or malactive drohen. And I want to test if the condition can cancel and this malactive implication. And I asked I constructed a very lengthy story and asked the lady speakers, but they said this is strange. So based on this fact seems to point to the CI status of the malactive meaning, I think.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So should we reach the end of the session? Okay, thank you very much.